2013. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. All members are present. The invocation will be offered by Councilman Clint Schrader and the pledges by Director Michael Aguilera. If you'll please rise. Oh, I am so sorry.
Right. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Dear Lord, we thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. We look around at each other and in our surroundings every day and realize how blessed we are to be here together. Dear Lord, we ask that you be with us today as we conduct our business in a way that will be honorable to each other as well as you. Dear Lord, we ask that you be with our neighbors in the Metroplex that were affected by the recent tornadoes. And dear Lord, we also ask that you be with our neighbors to the north in Oklahoma who were just recently affected by some tornadoes. Please be with their families and friends as they sort through the event. And we pray that everybody finds comfort in you. Dear Lord, we ask that you please be with our men and women of the armed forces as they go about their daily business. And dear Lord, we ask that you also be with our men and women that serve not only our town of Trophy Club, but towns around our nation as firemen and police officers as they do their daily business. And let there be a reminder that they risk their lives every day for us so that we may be protected. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. The first item we have is citizen presentations, which is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on any matter, whether or not it is posted on the agenda. The council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any presentations made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. We will hear presentations on specific agenda items prior to the council addressing those items. You may speak up to 3 minutes or the time limit determined by the mayor. To speak during this item, you must complete the speaker's form that includes the topics of your statement. Topics should be limited to matters over which the council has authority. And I do have Trish Myers.
Good evening. I'm Trish Myers, representing the church at Trophy Lakes and the new Trophy Lakes Academy. And in front of you is a card for the Memorial Day block party. This is something that the church at Trophy Lakes has done for their congregation for about 5 years. In the last couple of years, with the expansion of the preschool and the creation of the academy, we've opened up that to the citizens of the town. And we wanted to come by tonight and formally invite the council and the town to come out. We are cooking briskets and pork shoulders and hot dogs and hamburgers for about 500 people. We've got bounce houses galore for kids, live music, car bash, a car show, games, and everything's free. This is just basically an event that we as a church body want to give to the community, and we would love to see and have everybody there. As you guys have noticed, if you've driven by, we're very excited that we have a lot of dirt moving and are working 6 days a week on moving that dirt. And so if you guys are out there on Sunday from 5 to 8, see anybody in one of the event shirts, that's all the staff of the church will be out there. If you have any questions, we'd love to walk you through the property and kind of show you the neat and exciting things. And our contractor still is promising August 27th for first day of school, so we're hoping to do that because we are right now we're pleased to announce that the preschool is at 100% plus capacity, and we're actually actively hiring additional teachers for the academy so that we stay at our 10-to-1 student-teacher ratio. So we have good problems. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing all of you Sunday. Our guys on duty, both fire, medical, and police, we do want to invite all of them out and their families. There will be a Memorial Day recognition in the sanctuary of the church for anybody who has loved ones that are actively serving or who have served. So thank you, and we'll see you Sunday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what you do. Okay, the next thing is the consent agenda. All items listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items unless they need to be pulled from the agenda. So do we have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 3. Consider and take appropriate action regarding a consulting agreement between the town and GSBS for professional services to develop a facility condition audit, future space needs analysis, and proposed site study and analysis, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents. Mr. Sly?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, we went out several weeks ago with a RFQ looking for qualifications for qualified firms to come in and do a feasibility study of existing facilities and site analysis of future facilities. And we did not restrict that just to a police facility. We looked at all of the municipal services, whether it's a town hall or a street maintenance area or community civic center, whatever the municipal needs are. We interviewed 3. We had 14 actually come in with their qualifications, all of whom were very qualified. At this point, we're almost splitting hairs. We did interview 3 of them, subsequently selected GSBS, and Tom is here tonight representing that firm. We had some discussions related to the proposals that Tom and his firm submitted for this particular exercise. I feel like what Tom has submitted on behalf of GSBS is a very fair price, and it would be the staff's recommendation for council to award that particular proposal to GSBS for the price of $47,500.
Okay, thank you. Did you?
And Tom is, I don't know if Tom is prepared for any formal statements, but I'm sure if you have questions of him, he can certainly.
Okay.
Mayor White, good evening, council members. GSBS Architects is very honored for your consideration for this work tonight to help you with this facility analysis, needs assessment, and site studies for a potential new facilities. We don't know what that is today or when that might happen, but this is the first step to help you along in analyzing what and if the city might need. GSBS has a storied history of doing municipal facilities the last 10 years in Northeast Texas, including your neighbors Roanoke with the opening of the new public library and the renovation to the Senior Citizens Center. And this week we have the bid packages going out for final bids for the Commissioner Fickus's Northeast Tarrant County Courthouse in Precinct 3. So we're very happy to work with him as well. So we hope to do that with you and analyze the facilities and come up with some recommendations.
We specifically went out with the RFQ as we did, very broad in nature, and I'm only asking GSBS in this case to do the initial analysis. And I mean, this may turn into a architectural project that you want to move forward with at some point in time, but at this point we were just taking baby steps, and I should indicate to you that this is part of the $500,000 tax note that you issued, trying to get all of the particulars done so that when we are in a position to build a new police facility or whatever that municipal facility might be, that we're ready to turn dirt and get the ball rolling. So all of this is a prelude to the eventual construction of a municipal facility of some sort, with a primary focus on the police department.
Mayor, I move to approve the consulting agreement between the town and GSBS for professional services to develop a facility condition audit, future space needs analysis, and proposed site study and analysis in an amount not to exceed $47,500, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents.
Second. Mayor,
Yes, sir?
before we go into any discussion, I know Mr. Baconhorse and our firm has worked with GSBS in several locations, so to preclude any conflict of interest, I'm going to excuse myself and let the council discuss on their own.
Thank you.
You know, may I ask a question? I just have a crazy question because Trophy Club is limited in opportunities to build a building. You know that, right?
Yes.
And so with that in mind, how do you determine appropriate place with size and everything? And I mean, how do you go about doing your research and analysis?
Well, we're going to work with Mike and Stephen in determining what sites might be available in the city, in the town, to place a complex, whatever that might be. We do know that Mr. Beck has a particular site that has some interest probably and should be looked at, as well as some other sites. So we will look at each particular site in terms of zoning, potential drainage issues on those sites, traffic, utilities, and we will come up with a matrix that identifies how these sites compare against each other.
Okay.
The potential size, how much building we can get on those sites based on your zoning ordinances in terms of density and parking. Some sites may be more or less appropriate for the use as we identify what is the final makeup of the needs, police, other city uses, and so on. So we'll come up with a matrix that identifies what those sites offer and present that to you.
Cool. I
Do
like
you-
matrix.
Do you in that process consider alternative uses? So for example, if you were going to put a municipal facility on one site that would have a very high potential commercial use versus something else, do you do that analysis
Yes,
as well?
ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, one of the reasons we're bringing this forward is that later during the manager's update, Mike's going to talk about development and what's left in terms of raw land to develop within Trophy Club. And in reality, it's only a couple hundred acres.
Right.
And much of that has already been predetermined to be residential neighborhoods. So for the future of Trophy Club, coming out of our vision work with the Vision 2030 and looking down the road, you know, it's part of our responsibility to identify these sites now so that we can take appropriate action when the timing is correct, so that we do have the opportunity to build a civic center or to build a new police station. Where should those go? And identify the best sites and look at the pros and cons, look at the layouts, what works, what doesn't work. And so I really commend the council for taking this action up.
Thank you.
And finally, the space needs assessment. Tom and his team are going to come in and look at what our staffing needs are, not today, but at build-out.
Right.
And as Stephen just suggested, I'm going to show you a few slides later on this evening that talks about where we're at toward that build-out, and we're not very far off. And, you know, so what we're doing is doing the appropriate planning for when we do have build-out that we can grow into, as it were, both from public safety and every other function that we have in providing those municipal services. So I'm excited about the entire thing.
I saw a list of all of your work. Which one of them are you most proud of? Do you have one?
Every municipality we've worked with has its own triumphs and challenges, and so every customer is important to us. So, Ms. Tiffany, I don't think I could tell you which is the most.
I mean, you just had a
which is the
huge
best.
long list, and I was curious as to which
They're all
was-
very important.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, is there anybody else? All right, I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Okay,
Thank you, Mayor and council members. We'll be back in a couple months.
Thank you very much.
We'll be in touch, Tom. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the idea of really having a cohesive plan to move forward. Okay, thanks, April. Okay, we'll move on to item 4. Consider and take appropriate action regarding an ordinance abandoning the town's interest in a 0.9679 acre right-of-way dedicated to the town and formerly used as part of Parkview, providing for findings of public purpose to convey the vacated right-of-way to NISD for the public purpose of facilitating ingress and egress to public roadways, providing for conditions of conveyance, and providing an effective date. Mr. Sly?
Thank you, Mayor. This vacation of the old Parkview is a remnant from the Medlin site plan, and we're still dealing with parts of the Medlin site plan. Moran is here from NISD. Where we're talking about is property that's on Medlin property now that used to be Parkview. It is no longer Parkview, and with the development of the medical center on that triangular piece of property, it became necessary to get this portion of the Parkview property, the old Parkview Drive, vacated and turned over to the school for school property, and your legal documents that you have in front of you for consideration would provide that road would still maintain public access. Okay, but we are formally vacating that road. We don't want to have to maintain it. It's rightfully an entryway to the Medlin Middle School as it's been designed, and we would certainly recommend approval of vacating the old Parkview Drive.
Yes, sir.
I would move that we approve an ordinance abandoning the town's interest in .9679 acre right-of-way dedicated to the town and formerly used as part of Parkview, providing for findings of public purpose to convey the vacated right-of-way to NISD for the public purpose of facilitating ingress and egress to public roadways, providing for conditions of conveyance, and providing an effective date.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
So the effective date, do we need to define that now?
Patricia?
It will be passage.
Okay.
Anyone else? All those in favor? We were voting. Are you, all those in favor?
Sorry.
Okay.
Pre-discussion.
Bless you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Item number 5. Consider and take appropriate action regarding a consulting agreement between the town and Bennett Benner Pettit for professional services related to the creation and adoption of 2 tax increment financing districts or tax increment reinvestment zones for the purpose of planning and economic development and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents.
Mayor and council, this item is for your consideration to create 2 TIF districts, otherwise known as TIRZs, or Tax Increment Reinvestment Zones. They're one and the same. We solicited RFQs by advertising for 2 weeks, and we had one respondent, Bennett, Benner and Pettit. They are one of the preeminent firms in the state that do this type of work. He has extensive experience, Mr. Pettit does, assisting cities and developers, but primarily cities with TIF development. The 2 areas that we've identified are the Trophy Wood area, which is where the Hampton Inn is located, and the reason for that is the tax roll has only part of the Hampton Inn on it currently. It will go into the full taxable value on the 2014 rolls. So the purpose of a TIF is to capture that incremental property value, and so that you can put in public improvements for development purposes or beautification, things like that. And we also know that there are several other developments in that area that will be coming online fairly shortly, including probably a submission this week. The second area is the 26-acre parcel at Trophy Club Drive and Highway 114. Also, this is Mr. Scott Beck's property. And based on conversations with Beck and his team, there is discussion about moving forward with that, and fairly soon. And we would want to be able to capture the 2013 base value so that you would get the full effect of the incremental taxable value increase as development occurred. The EDC was presented this at their last meeting last week, and the board approved to fund the proposal in an amount not to exceed $70,000. That's $35,000 per. It's a turnkey proposal. It involves everything from developing the preliminary site plan, financing plans, the ordinances, setting meetings with the appropriate entities that can participate in a TIF. So really, it's a turnkey proposal. And the board unanimously approved it with the conditions that they be included in this process in terms of being updated and understanding where we're at, and having at least one EDC 4B member on the TIF board when it's created, and additionally having you subsequently pass it. So there are members of the board present tonight that can answer any questions on behalf of EDC 4B, and staff's recommendation is approval.
Thank you. Okay.
May I make a motion?
Sure.
I move that we approve a consultant agreement between the town and Bennett Penner Pettit for professional services related to the creation and adoption of 2 tax increment financing districts, or tax increment reinvestment zones, for the purpose of planning and economic development, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Got it.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
again, Bennett, Penner and Pettit are a design firm that our firm has worked with on numerous occasions before. We haven't worked with them directly, obviously involved in TIFs, so I'll leave it up to our town attorney. If she feels that I am in conflict, then I will excuse myself again.
If you do not have an interest in the business or business relationship with them, then you don't have a conflict.
We have worked with the firm before in an architectural design basis before, not in a TIF consultant basis.
Okay, you've worked with them on a project and had a contract together?
Yes.
I still don't think you have a conflict in this case. If you feel like it doesn't look good, then you certainly can decide that you're going to abstain. But I don't, based on what the state law is, I don't think that one contract would be enough to meet the economic equivalence, so.
Counsel? I'll be happy to excuse myself. It's just, I want to.
Well, I think.
Be above the board with it. Like I said, they are a design firm, which our firm has worked with them before, in more than one occasion. Like I said, this is a specialized piece that they do that we do not work with them on.
Well, I think that, I guess my feeling is that you have been working with the EDC board and have the most experience in this field to, I think we would value your input. And I think that given that it is really a single company that's actually applied, it's not like we're choosing between companies. It's really whether we're choosing to go ahead with this function. So is that valid, Patricia?
Yes, ma'am. I don't believe there's a conflict here.
Okay.
All right, I just wanted
Well, thank you for bringing that
On
up.
record,
Go for it.
this is what we do, and that's what they do, and
Okay.
we've worked together before, so.
I think the decision at hand is really whether we move forward in looking into this process more than a specific company. I mean, the decision is the specific company, but really,
There's only one.
Project.
right.
Well, Mayor, that being said, if everybody's comfortable with me commenting as the EDC liaison, I mean, we've discussed this in their program and their government process in the past, and again, I obviously cannot speak for council, but this group is very good at what they do in organizing to get the process through and be able to market what we need to get done. And you're taking, in my opinion, I mean, you're not risking anything. You're taking raw, undeveloped land or partially developed land, and then you're drawing a line in the sand. And then what you're moving forward with this is the value that's improved. And not moving forward with an option like this, especially as competitive as the marketplace is, other cities, towns are using methods like this to help get selected companies, firms to pull the trigger and develop in their town. And again, just in my opinion, if you do not have all these cards at the table, I think we are limiting our process and be able to Assistant Town Manager Seidel and Town Manager Sly and the EDC board, it's one more card that they have the opportunity to work with. And just establishing the TIF is not, all you're doing is establishing. You're not saying, okay, here's the deal, this is the tax abatement, this is the process, this is what we're going forward on. It's just saying, okay, it now is. And we're drawing a line and saying, okay, now we can use these funds for the public good.
It's something you just said, when you said this is not involving a tax abatement. This is involving a percentage.
I misspoke. It's not a
Okay, I
tax
wanted to make
abatement.
sure.
This is apples and oranges.
Right, that's what I thought.
The TIF itself is basically a gain in the value that you grow when a developer comes in and you take it typically from an unapproved property to an improved property, and that gain in property tax value, then that is a negotiable event run. So you haven't lost anything. And that's what a lot of people think is, well, okay, well, I got to give all this away. Well, you're not giving away anything, especially if nobody comes. So it's an incentive to be able to work with developers to be able to provide public amenities to help get the deal done. And so if you have it or don't have it and the town down the road does have it and as competitive as the world is these days, then they weigh it out and going, okay, where's my best choice?
Did you want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. I spent a great deal of time this week reading up on TIFs and doing research on TIFs, and trying to keep ahead of Councilman Rose. The state comptroller has a very good website and a registry on TIFs in the state of Texas, where you can look at every TIF that's established. I chose to choose the ones that are around us. I think there are two that are close to us that are very visible. One is Texas Motor Speedway. The city of Fort Worth developed Texas Motor Speedway as a TIF district. And the other is, that we're all aware of, is South Lake Town Square, which is part of a, not all of South Lake Town Square is in it, but it goes all the way down to Kimball and takes in, for those of you that have lived here for a long time, there used to be an old Walmart there, if y'all remember that. And when Walmart wanted to build a super Walmart, South Lake said, no, we don't want a Walmart. actually want to redo all of this, and they established a really nice 256 acre TIF zone. That has been, and if you go to the city of Southlake, their website, they have a complete page on their TIF. And I believe, as I looked at that today, they have completed most of their payouts in that now, and they still have $5 million left in the that the city can take and use for whatever they choose to use. So it's been very successful. But the city of Louisville did a 215 acre tract, which included new city facilities in their tract. You may have been involved in some of these. The city of Plano did a 125 acre tract. All of these, by the way, have money left in their fund. They all are way ahead of the game in funds. The city of Keller did an 1,100 acre tract, commercial, residential, town hall. You can look at all of these. They currently have $400,000 left after expending $5.5 million. The city of Arlington did 355 acres. The city of Fort Worth, we talked about, that was, by the way, a 1,500 acre tract out there that they did, the TIF zone that Texas Motor Speedway's in. Fort Worth's done several of them. Colleyville did one for, they did report their acreage, but they have $850,000 that's left over. The point about all of these TIFs, and I think if I can anticipate, I think because the 26 acres, affectionately known as PD 30, is involved, that probably the understanding or the thinking of those that would be opposed to a TIF, when there is absolutely no downside to a TIF at all, that somehow they think that Scott Beck is going to get our money and we're just giving money away, and that is far from the case. And when it comes to PD 30, I think it's safe to say that probably no one spent as much time and as much money opposing PD 30 as I did, especially, well, not all of it, just the apartments. I want to point out that we didn't get everything we wanted. They wanted 1,000 apartments. They got 250. They wanted, I think, what was the original, Mike? 10-story buildings, and they're a whole lot shorter than that. And one of the things that I know that Glenn was real big on is the development of commercial property along with the development of apartments. So PD 30 was passed, it was rezoned, and it's going to get developed. Now, what we have to do as a council is decide whether we agreed with it or not. The zoning's done, and the zoning's not going to get changed because both parties have to agree, and Scott Beck would have to be an absolute idiot to say that he agrees to changing it back to the way it was. So that's going to happen. So how do we make the most of that 26 acres and get it developed, maybe including, as some of these others have done, maybe a city hall can fit in there, or a municipal building of some kind. I mean, that's all. That's what we're trying to find out with our $45,000 we spent tonight. But as much as I've read and as many TIFs as I've looked at this week, and I looked at a couple of hundred of them, there's not a downside at all to a TIF zone. And all we're doing is moving the money forward and developing for public use, infrastructure. I just can't see why we wouldn't want to approve this and get moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a quick side note, the EDC 4B budget, this year's budget, allocated $40,000 for a study such as this. At that time, we were really only looking at the Beck parcel, and with the movement that Trophy Wood has had with the conclusion of the Hampton Inn, along with some other things that are coming forward, it seemed like if you were going to do one, now is the time. In addition, the council outlined some goals such as entryway improvements and streetways and landscaping, which TIF funds can be used for those types of things. So if we wanted to look at that area and look at the beautification aspects of it, those would be considered public improvements that could be used with TIF dollars. So just as additional background information.
Thank you.
I have a question for the attorney. Do we need a dollar amount in this? A dollar amount in the motion? It wasn't included?
You can put one in the motion. We did not put one in the posting because we've had issues in the past with that, so we left it out of the posting, but you can certainly put a not to exceed figure in the
I
motion.
move
You
to
don't-
amend, move to amend the motion to state in an amount not to exceed $70,000.
I'll second that. I need to second, yeah.
Okay. Shall we vote on the amendment?
Vote on the amendment
All right.
first. Yep.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment not to exceed 70,000? Okay. Go ahead.
Mayor, I'd just like to say that, you know, the EDCB board does a great job. They do a lot of research and a lot of work, and they come to the council with their best recommendation for the town. And Danny has said it all. I'm not going to say any more about TIF. I'm just going to say that as a council, I would like to see us be able to support your recommendation from the EDCB board. You do represent the town. You're the citizens who are appointed to those commissions and those boards, and you are representing the town as much as we are up here at this dais. So thank you for your work, and it's timely. It's time to get on with it.
Bill?
I'd like to also say that I attended the EDC 4B meeting for the presentation on the TIF and the TERS, as well as some of the others I see in the audience. I really appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the thoughtful discussion, and I appreciate your enthusiasm in what you do for the town.
Anyone else? We did have a speaker, Mr. Hoover. Did we have another?
My name is Larry Hoover. I live at 1118 Berkshire Court, and I notice there are 3 members of the EDC4B meeting, so I hope I'm not the only one speaking tonight. I support the TIF zones wholeheartedly. I think Glenn did a great explanation of why we need it, and so did Danny. As usual in this town, there are former council members who are opposed to that. They haven't done their homework. I think it would be interesting, or the council should emphasize that the $70,000 is coming out of EDC4B money and not from the town budget. I have one caution, due to the way our charter is written, it's a slippery slope as to whether TIF board member could be a council member. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Did we have anyone else that wanted to speak? Okay. There are a couple of things that I noticed in the package that I was really pleased with that I think is important to know that we're thinking about. One of them was that the package that we're looking for includes an assessment and analysis of the cash flow of what we can do, and I think that's really important so that we know what we commit to in the way some people that you hear about have gotten in trouble with TIFs have overcommitted perhaps on the expenditure side of something they wanted to do. And with a good analysis of the cash flow or the potential cash flow and the different options, I think that helps protect us so that we don't go too far on that. That's one thing that I think. The other thing that I haven't heard too much mention of, but I understand that there are other entities, and I think Stephen mentioned this, that when you go into a TIF, some of the tax funds from other entities also can come back to our infrastructure. And I think that's something we tend to forget, that there are other entities out there, particularly the county. I think they've changed the law so the schools can't do it anymore, but they used to. But in the county, and that helps that really multiplies our money and multiplies the funds available. And some of the things, we think of it as, you hear a lot about people being concerned about helping the developer. But the fact is, there are things that we want in this town that we can't necessarily require somebody to do, or they may not be. Maybe we want something really nice in our front entrance, or maybe we want some facility in PD 30 or in one of the places that wouldn't be something that the developers necessarily can build. But this is a way for us to do it without impacting our residents, and I think it's a really positive thing. I'd also share with you didn't mention North Richland Hills. I happen to be at their, they built this, I think it's 10 or 15,000 foot recreational facility / senior center, indoor swimming pool, the whole works, totally paid for by their TIF. So I thought that was.
I just missed that one, Mayor.
Well, I just happened to be there, so that was.
I want to add one thing. When you talk about the importance of it is, and I think the reason, and South Lake is a very good example. When the town establishes a TIF, it's kind of like playing poker. I mean, we get in the game. Now we have some skin in the game. Now we have an opportunity to say what does and what doesn't go. And that's why Walmart is not in South Lake. You can't demand things if you're not willing to play the game. And I with all of the towns around us, there's in Richardson, there's a very successful, now a lot of these I read 1,415 acres and 150 acres. Well, there's a 20-acre development in Richardson called Brick Row. And you need to go by and see Brick Row because it's pretty much zoned just in the area is pretty much just like PD 30 is. So that is a good example of what a really good planned out TIF will do, and they've been very successful with that, and it's developed greatly, and I think we have that same opportunity. So I really do support this.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make just one clarifying point that to dispel a myth in Trophy Club's cyberspace. When a TIF is created, and what our consultant will do for us is model that particular TIF, having some educated idea of what would be developed and what the value would be there on the ground. They'll be able to come back to the council and say, here's what makes sense in terms of how much of a TIF designation you want to make. Simply by creating a TIF does not mean that the 100% of that incremental value goes to the TIF fund. We made a very strong point during PD 30 discussions about the easiest and quickest way to minimize the residential tax burden is to create commercial development. You don't have to designate that 100% of that increment to the TIF fund. Most TIFs don't. It may be anywhere from 40 to 60% of that increment goes to the TIF fund. The rest comes back to the general fund that helps offset that residential tax burden. So I know that there's been some discussion out in our community about, we're taking money out of the general fund to create this TIF piece, but in fact, we're really not. You have the option when it comes before you for adoption to designate how much of that incremental value goes to the TIF and how much comes to the general fund that could help offset that tax burden.
In South Lake, they designated 40% reimbursement to the developer for infrastructure. They paid out, I think, a total, if I recall, of $11 million. And like I say, they still have $5 million left after. So that TIF performed at a much higher and greater value than what it was set up as. So they've done a really good job over there.
Thank you.
Just to add on to what you said, something I picked up at the EDC briefing is one of the things that you can do with a TIF is you can incentivize a greater value development than you might be able to do otherwise. And so your overall return becomes greater.
In other words, you have a say in it.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having computer problems here tonight.
Jim Hicks.
Okay, Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mayor White. Town Council, I don't want to belabor the points, the fine points that's been made here. Most of the things that I would have said have already been said by a number of individuals. I would like to thank you all on behalf of the EDC Board for your support. And I believe that the timing is right. Timing is everything. Timing is essential. We're on the cusp of a lot of things happening, and to do the TIFs at this point is absolutely the right time. To not do those TIFs, okay, would in fact be a zero risk opportunity foregone. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else have any comments? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Okay, we're good. Thank you, and thank you. I also want to add my thanks to the EDC. I really appreciate all the work you put into this, as well as the rest of the things you do. So thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 6. Consider and take appropriate action regarding financial and variance report dated April 2013.
Good evening, Council. For the April financials, as you know, we've gone over the mid-year report, the previous month's financials. We've gone over everything, and basically what you're seeing here is just one more month's worth of expenditures. We've collected a few more revenues in some categories, obviously in licenses and permits. As we mentioned before, we're expecting large payments for the electric franchise in May, in the current month, so you should see that in the next month's financials. Still looking at the EMS revenue. It still is a little low, and we're researching that with our collection agency, and we'll get you some more details on that at the next month's financials. Additionally, with regards to miscellaneous, was noted that, you know, obviously we've exceeded the projected amount for this year. That has to do with insurance proceeds, so you know, for the police building. That's the category that it fell under for revenues.
Michael, before you go off revenues, I
Yes,
have a
ma'am.
question. Have you done a side-by-side analysis of the tax collections for this, you know, month to month over the last couple of years?
And you're talking about just property taxes?
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am. And they're online with where they should be.
They are. I thought we usually ran more about 95, 98%.
Well, the taxes there, that category there also includes not just the regular property taxes, but delinquent. And so usually we'll see that come up towards the end of the year. So when you group all those together, it lowers it significantly. But taxes in themselves, the current taxes, are right where they should be.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
with regards to general fund expenditures, nothing new to report that hasn't already been reported. The departments that are looking like they're going to exceed their budget, the explanations have been there for several months now. If you have any specific questions as to department, I can take those questions now. I will say that sales tax, this was another month. There haven't been very many. I believe it's just this one and one other that came in lower than what we collected last year. But overall, we're still over the collections for last year. I'm hoping that, because when we built in the projection for sales tax revenue in the current budget, we did project an increase from last year's collections. So we're still on target to hit that. But I don't see us necessarily exceeding what we budgeted for sales tax revenue this year. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, any questions or motion?
Move to approve the financials as presented.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Item 7, Town Manager Sly's update regarding, Town Manager Sly's update.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 4 things that I'd like to report on. The Police Department facility rehab is going well. We've got all of the furniture and equipment moved out of the building, and that expedited the process. There was a little bump in the road. Hang on, just a little bump in the road as it related to demolition, because what were they, 2 or 3 layers of linoleum, 2 layers of linoleum that they had to peel up, and it was a struggle, but it's done. One of their subcontractors got delayed on another project, so it delayed us a couple of days. They're working to make that time up and still finish up in that 32-day time frame. So we're pleased with the progress and are excited about the idea of the police department being able to move back into their facility, at least for the short term, until we can figure out what a permanent solution is moving forward. One of the things I ought to share with you as it related to that particular facility and this feasibility study that you just approved was GSBS was going to consider and look at the feasibility of retaining that building. And one of the reasons we were able to get that price for their services down was the fact that I asked them not to. I don't know that we have future plans, and we've already been put on notice by the MUD, as you know, to be out of there in the next couple of years. So that facility is moving forward, and it won't be long before we have the police back in a routine and the firefighters back in their home without all their in-laws scurrying around the hallways. Pool and splash pad. We actually had a party this past weekend, a private party. It was opened up for that. We're opening up to the public this weekend, Memorial Day weekend. We'll close it down again and then reopen when school lets out in the following weekend, June 2nd. Private parties have been booked every weekend. I mean, it is loaded. We are loaded for bear in the pool and splash pad complex. All the back to school parties and all that kind of stuff have already been booked and bought and paid for. We've got all of our lifeguards hired. The swimming team is kicking off. Just lots of activity that you would anticipate this time of year. So we're gearing up for all of that, and you'll see a lot of activity out that way.
Do you have any idea how large the swim team this year? Have they determined?
I can find out. I don't know.
Just curious. I just think it's important that to know. I mean, I think we're definitely the training ground for a state level
got a
team.
ver-
They've sent people to state.
They've got a very successful program there.
Mike, I'm glad you mentioned the private parties and all that, 'cause I was going to ask you anyways. Can we see maybe a monthly report from Adam about parties that were scheduled, parties that happened, and maybe parties that didn't happen or whatever, and what that's bringing in? And then also, maybe a little bit tedious. If it's too tedious, that's fine, but just some numbers of usage. You know, how many people are coming in on a weekly or monthly basis, whatever's easy to figure out.
They're capturing that information.
It's just to see in a report, I think would be interesting.
They usually capture that at the end of the season and provide one
Right.
report, but if you want interim
I don't see them
reports.
as interim yet to see how things are trending.
Okay. As you know, we had a wildfire out in TCP a couple of weeks ago, and initially it was reported, I think 40 acres had burned. It was significantly less than that. It ended up, 6 acres, Chief?
6 to 10 acres. No trail system, no structure.
None of the infrastructure, the trails or anything was affected. Obviously, we had mutual aid assistance, and South Lake came to in fact, I think they responded first and had the necessary heavy equipment to cut a line through there to stop that fire from spreading. Just a classic mutual aid response from lots of folks. Grapevine was there, Trophy Club, South Lake, and prevented what could have been a much worse situation. So I just wanted to kind of clear the record. It wasn't 40 acres that got burned out.
Where'd that initial number come from? I was curious. That was a little bit alarming.
I don't know where it came from, but it's typical. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tornado season. I can remember 1979 tornado in Wichita Falls. And,
I was a
and
little
the-
young. Go ahead.
And the radio, the mobile reporter for the radio was,
You missed that-
you know,
you missed that one.
would drive by and said, you know, Midwestern State is demolished. It's flattened. They had a few tiles come off the recreation facility, but people get excited that way. So that's good news. I mentioned earlier.
Lightning or?
No.
We don't think it was vandal though?
Toward the lake, so it could have been a fisherman or something like that, or.
The things that you were taking care of business tonight, we have been working on for a considerable amount of time. The feasibility study, the TIF situation. And this is the reason. I wanted to give you some statistics and let you look at. I asked Carolyn to pull together some numbers that would give you some idea of where we're at in terms of land use in Trophy Club, Texas. You can segregate our community into residential, recreation, non-taxable, and commercial properties. And you can see that we are predominantly residential. That's no surprise. 2% recreation, 7% the governmental facilities, schools and churches, and then obviously our commercial component, 4%. 4% of our property, total property in Trophy Club is zoned commercial. We are 4.2 square miles, 2,600 acres, and of the residential component, 1,800 acres, we've developed all but 172 acres. That's not just a whole lot of property left. And I'll give you some detail about that in just a minute. 500, almost 600 acres represent the country club and the various parks that we have in town. And there's some opportunity there that we might be able to rezone Beck Park as an example. We'd have to pull it out of the floodplain and things like that. A lot of work would have to be done, but you know, it could be a multi-functional use property. It could be park and commercial, as an example. 188 acres are the facilities we sit in, the churches and the schools. And we've got 55 undeveloped commercial acres left before we are built out. We have no ETJ. We can't grow. We can't annex. We're done. That's it. We are what we are. And as a result, our focus will start turning toward redevelopment. And that's what we discussed with the Vision 2030 committee and that kind of thing, because we get built out doesn't mean we stop working, right? We still try to make improvements for our community along the way. I told you I'd give you a little more detail on residential. Of the 172 acres remaining, there are 2 neighborhoods up in the Highlands that have not been platted yet. Neighborhood 5, Phase 2E, and 7-2G. 7-2G is in-house. We're reviewing those plans as we speak. And I think 5-2E is as well, are they not?
They're under construction, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, they're, oh, 2G, I'm talking about.
That's where,
Never mind.
that's behind the dog
3C,
park.
7-3C is currently in review. That's 31 acres. Neighborhood 8-2B is also in review. We are currently reviewing Canterbury Hills and the estate lots of Hogan's Glen, another 55 acres. And the Isle of Turnberry is 11 acres. And that's the area that will be broached by, what's the name of that bridge that they've named it now? Do you remember?
I don't know, I just know it's 180 feet.
It's that road,
It's on Veranda.
Veranda Bridge, yeah. And we have about 10 acres of private properties that have yet to be unplatted. But, guys, that's just not a whole lot to do. I mean, we are nearing that point where Trophy Club is what Trophy Club will be. And then our focus, like I said, turns to redevelopment. Commercial properties, here's what we're working on, or what's available. We've got a 1.5 acre lot next to 7-Eleven over here in PD 13, Village Shopping Center. PD 25 and 26 is down by the Hampton Inn. That's about, what is that, 12, 13 acres, some of which is currently being reviewed. We're anticipating plans being dropped Wednesday or Thursday this week for additional development there. PD 27 is up there by the PID. We've got 7 acres available, 3 of which we talked about earlier with the vacation of the old Parkview Drive. That triangular piece was a medical center. And the other 4 acres, I think, has a Montessori school sign on it, if you're familiar with that. Commercial general, 8.3 acres next to the hospital, currently being reviewed. Rezoning application has been filed. We're reviewing it with a PD with the intent of bringing yet another hotel and 3 restaurant pads that we're really excited about. And then, you know, I almost hate to say it, but the big kahuna, PD 30, 26 acres. 26 acres, and we're done. So we got about 55 total commercial developable acres. And then we start looking at other uses of properties, you know, and taking advantage of situations that may come along as development continues to happen. So
If somebody
I don't want to present that as a bleak picture. It's a good picture. I mean, Trophy Club is on people's radars, right? And as a consequence, we have been really, really busy about developing, most of which is that residential stuff. But yeah, we can put this up on the website.
If we only have 55 acres of commercial and somebody is trying to rezone some of it to residential, do we have to do that?
No, you don't have to do anything.
I know, I didn't know whether there was any kind of,
but I mean, there is one property that is would have to be rezoned. That's currently zoned for hospital. It's not going to happen. The hospital, the folks that own that property built that new hospital out on 114. I don't think they're going to. So the property that they did have identified and bought, we are working with a new developer there that would have a medium density residential component, townhomes that would protect single family homes. Where's that? Over by the water tower and all of that area.
I just hate to see us give up
We've not
commercial.
received any kind of plans on that. They back up to the potential Holiday Inn. And that I mentioned earlier, I'm expecting some plans midweek this week, and that's the plans I'm expecting. It's a Holiday Inn, full-service Holiday Inn, and unless they've made some concessions, and I've talked to the architect today, Stephen, they've made some concessions to the structure of that building so that the setbacks alleviate some of the concern that the residential developers would have north of that property. We hope not to lose either one of them, of those projects, because they're both important to the community. And we'll continue to work toward getting that deal done.
Just to clarify, the residential component is owner-occupied housing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyway, I just wanted to give you an update of, you know, where we stand. You keep hearing me say we're nearing build-out. I think those numbers would indicate that we're nearing build-out.
Very nearing.
Yeah. All the more reason we need to be doing these feasibility studies and getting prepared for that what little commercial we have, being able to compete for it. So thank you, council, for taking the actions you did tonight. That's all I
Okay.
have, Mayor.
I guess I have a question regarding people who are coming in, developers who are coming. What is it that we don't have that developers are wanting?
Land.
Well,
Seriously,
That's
I
all
mean,
that's
that
it.
is, I told the mayor and Mike last week that I wish that we were larger. I wish we had more available property because I get a lot of phone calls for projects where that would take, they need more than 2 acres, which is a 2-acre lot, which really is the most, we've got, the 55 acres that are left undeveloped, 26 are PD 30, and then the rest are 8 acres here and 2 acres here, and you can't really do anything. But I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that a minor league ballpark that wants to have a presence here, and things like that. That Adventure Park with ropes courses, and not a water park, but that type of deal. It would be a once kind of a only attraction like that in the Metroplex. But I don't have any place to put them, and we're landlocked, and so that's why working with what we've got is important, and we're gonna make lemonade out of some of the lemons we've got. But this also helps set the stage for redevelopment, and standing still equates to falling behind, and you just can't be happy with what we've got today. We need to start focusing, and that's one of the reasons for the vision plan. That's a reason to begin looking at a new comprehensive plan that will help guide our development in the future. We followed our 1997 plan to a T. If you look at it, there's very little deviation from it. So the next challenge will be looking at our community and say, what does it need to look like in 2030 or 2040, and begin working on that. So that's an exciting challenge that our community will enter into in the future.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mike. All right, item number 8, updates regarding training opportunities, educational sessions. Well, I had a great training opportunity on my transatlantic cruise, but anyway, the only meeting I had, unless, Glenn, if you attended any others that you didn't report on before? I don't think so.
I think that's it, except for the EDC meeting
Right.
but we've already discussed the main item there.
And then there was Metroport Cities Partnership, which 2 things came out of that I thought were very interesting. We're putting together a piece, a 48-page booklet that will be about all the cities in the DFW Alliance corridor. And we're really excited about that, and it's actually being covered by our membership in Metroport Cities. All the cities will be covered by that as well. And then they'll be adding other commercial things, but it's a really nice-looking publication. And that should be shipped out in July. And the other thing was that the Westlake gave a presentation on some of the things they're doing and their goals and such. And I just wanted to make one point. They're very excited about, is it Entrada? Is that the right name? That is a mixed-use development, which is not quite the way it was represented in the paper. But it is a retail below, housing above. And so,
with PD 30.
right. Well, that's true too.
Yep.
But I just wanted to mention that they're excited about that, and they're also doing a lot of trails that will connect throughout the town and to other towns, including us. Okay, so that's covers number 8. Number 9
Mayor,
is
if I could, just briefly. I did have one educational opportunity on May the 14th. Councilmember Schrader was in Seattle, and so I had the educational opportunity with Parks and Recreation. They had a good, dynamic meeting also. Had a briefing on the Back to Nature and how well received that was out at the park. They had 70 people involved in a race. 420 were involved in morning events. And then they had 213 stick around for the camp out. They had 14 booths where people could visit and do things. Another item that they did is they approved a package to bring forward to council. I think it'll be in June for additional expenditure on the bond monies. They're bringing forward surveillance cameras for Indy East. upgrade on the bleachers at Indy East, and bocce ball courts for Harmony Park for those of us over 65.
All right. You don't have to be over 65 to play bocce ball.
That's true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
And thank you, Mike. If you'd convey, I heard a lot of good things about the nature, Back to Nature Day.
It was really neat.
It's a really neat event. So, yeah, there's an excellent report and pictures and the whole work. So,
As Jeanette reminds me, Kathy Trotter gave the report. A lot of pictures and.
yeah, it was excellent. And I think I'm amazed at the turnout for the camping trips. I think that is really cool. I think it's and they've done a really
Despite
great
having to
job.
compete with Little League and soccer
There's
and
a lot
all
going
the
on.
other things going on,
Right.
there were kids all over town, everywhere, every nook and cranny.
Cool. It's a good thing. Okay. Moving on to item number 9, items for future agendas. Does anybody have anything they want to?
I don't know if this is necessarily an agenda item or not, but with going along with our Speed Awareness Month, I want to make sure we get that radar machine out and about.
Well, I'm telling you, I think people are speeding more in Trophy Club now than they have been in the past.
It's getting worse.
And it's not people
You mean since we,
driving through. I'm just saying
since the
in general.
council approved the proclamation?
How many? Yeah. That's exactly right.
Maybe they're too
That's
busy
not the
worrying
kind of
about it.
awareness we're talking about.
That's right. I mean, I saw a guy go, I think they're speeding more. I do.
It's the weather.
What? It's the weather?
Weather.
Speeding away from the tornadoes.
Get them all in a golf cart and slow down.
Maybe we need
I
to-
still have on my radar to meet with HOA presidents in the near future to address that among other issues. You know, how can we collectively slow the traffic down in the
It
neighborhoods?
really needs to be.
You know, and we've got some prices for solar powered, this is how fast you're going kind of thing that you see in South Lake and other communities. They're not cheap.
No,
They're not cheap. And,
that's
you
why
know,
South Lake has them.
I don't know if that's the direction we're gonna head, but, you know, I'm gonna ask the HOAs to get involved. Let's see what we can do with each of your neighborhoods to make them safer.
What about, Clint just mentioned about the sign. I haven't seen that out in a while. Maybe it's out someplace I haven't been, but we could probably use that along Trophy Club Drive and some other places for a while. And that way we either validate or not that people are speeding.
Yeah.
We can get that out.
Yeah, if it's, I mean,
I'd like to see
not to
them
be
on
too
Trophy.
blunt, but if it's just in a warehouse collecting dust, let's get the dust off of it.
Got it.
Don't we have one of those signs that we had where you just put a message board up, that portable message board? Don't we own that?
Yes. What do you want?
Well, I mean, we could talk about speeding on that. I mean,
But we'll slow down.
Well, those are message boards. I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm just saying, Speed Awareness Month, I mean, we could use those during Speed Awareness Month.
Okay.
Like, what are the plans for speed awareness? Are y'all,
Right tickets.
If I may, Counsel.
what are the plans to educate the community about this?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Brett Oliver here in the audience, he's the
Oh.
marketing intern. And him and I are working together to develop a formal campaign for speed awareness, including using those digital signs, among other things. So you will see speed awareness messaging in Trophy Club
Okay.
beginning in June.
June the 1st, that's next week.
We're ramping up. Yes, ma'am.
We've kept her busy this week.
Bless your heart. Okay.
I had a question on future agendas. Sales tax. We've talked before about doing an analysis of sales tax. And we don't have, and I don't know whether you're actually doing it. Okay, because I was going to say, this would be a good project for CFAP.
No, it's already done. Well,
It's
go
already
ahead.
done?
Yeah, we've already requested and received information from the comptroller's office, the confidentiality report for sales tax. That information, as it stated, is confidential.
Yeah, I
And so,
understand that.
I've put it into a pivot table and done some things with the data so that it's easily understandable. And Mike already has told me to be ready because he does plan on bringing you that data.
Okay.
We're going to present that. We're going to go to executive session to do that because it's confidential. And I committed to the 4B board that same briefing. We have the information. Unfortunately, we've been kind of tied up with executive sessions lately, and it's got bumped. But that project is, in fact, I think you're getting updated numbers as we speak. So.
And just for clarification, in case anybody questions it, it's confidential because the state comptroller's office requires it to be confidential. Okay. Not
Technically,
just because we decided.
technically, somebody could take sales tax
And back into
and
their
back
actual
into
revenue.
gross sales and that kind of thing, and that's just confidential information.
And the other thing is, the CFAB, our meeting?
Yes, that's on the radar too.
Okay.
Agenda items, may I ask, why do we keep number 6 on there, consider and take appropriate action regarding food prep carts for sporting events and special events, and to review update park policies? I mean, the summer's going to be gone, and here this is, and we haven't done it yet.
Well, sometimes we don't get the things.
Well, I understand, so is it important?
We just, have we not just completed a park policy review? I thought we just did that.
But
Yeah,
we
we
didn't talk
did.
about food
Parks
prep
order.
carts.
No, we didn't talk about
Ordinance
food
not.
prep.
Summer's gonna be gone.
This particular one really was addressing the
Those food carts.
the food trucks, not
Correct.
like, you know, an ice cream truck or
But a
something
food
like that.
truck, and
But the gourmet foods, the possibility of using them in conjunction with a concert in the park, or, you know, some different things like that.
And I had thought that was come to the conclusion that it would not work in
I don't
Trophy Club.
Know that we
Oh,
ever,
I thought.
I don't know
Yeah,
that
they
we've
did
ever
not.
pursued it. I mean,
Okay.
it kind of went back on the back burner when Keller
Is
all
it-
but kicked them out of town
Is it
because it
important?
took business away from their brick and mortar restaurants.
That's-
but we don't
see,
have
that's what
very
we
much
talked
in the way of brick and mortar to take it away from.
Well, we do have some.
Okay.
If you'd like some information on it, we can bring it to the table.
I just didn't take it off.
You want us to take it off?
No.
No, no, listen, Jeanette. That's,
Yeah, but
I said I would just soon take it off.
I was just clarifying.
Okay, no problem. Just
We get to put it on.
I can tell you that, I think it's number 8. Yeah. Number 8 has run into stumbling blocks.
Yeah.
Youth council is, you know, conceptually is a great thing to consider, having a youth council support the town council. But because Byron Nelson services kids from North Fort Worth and Roanoke and Justin and it becomes very difficult to try to put a youth council together unless the other communities want to participate as well. And we've had very little success in doing that, and frankly, have had very little success. You know, conceptually, the administration at the high school was very on board until we started thinking about how we would actually affect that, and we're just running into stumbling block after stumbling block.
What's to say, excuse me, what's to say we have to partner with the high school on this? Couldn't we just?
Well, typically, that's what they do.
Well, typically it's what you do, yeah,
I mean,
but-
the municipal league has a model for youth councils, and, you know, those who have them established and are, you know, concentric to their community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have their youth council conferences, and, I mean, they're very vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
We're a mixed bag, and it's very difficult to do that.
I think, I understand that. I think
I'm just
that we
telling you,
might
I mean,
still.
we can leave it on there, but it's just, it's a
lay
tougher
there.
nut to crack than what.
Yeah, it's not as easy as we
I
thought.
I would point out in that aspect, though, it was Trophy Club who invited the school to participate in our TV program, not the other towns in the district.
I am proud of Trophy Club embracing Byron Nelson High School.
Well,
We've had those discussions, you know, in the years past, and our community is embracing that high school, and, you know, go Bobcats.
Hey, it's spreading.
How about that?
Okay. I do have a request for speaker. Steve?
Steve Paula, 501 Glenwick. Want to talk about the food truck and the vending thing. I was recently at an event in Austin at the new racetrack they built, which is out in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of brick and mortar. And what was interesting what the town did there was they issued 3- and 4-day temporary food permits. What I noticed was most of the vendors that were there were actually brick and mortar restaurants that brought carts or brought stands or brought trailers out and sampled their wares and used it as an advertising venue for their local stuff. And it worked out really great. There were donut shops. There was a place called Tamale Experience that had just incredible things. But it really seemed to work really well, and they built it into kind of a little mini mall of mini restaurants. And then I've seen other towns that have done similar things where they've done Gourmet Week restaurant rallies and things like that, where they bring the food trucks out as part of a community event. So if we were doing a July 4th thing, or if we wanted to partner with the garage sales that we do, we could do things like that with a farmer's market. We could do things like that with gourmet trucks. But I think the city's got to kind of be prepared to issue or have standards for issuing a temporary permit. But again, if you bring it out to the local brick and mortars first, I think it'll be generally accepted by the local business because it gives them another selling point and a way to draw stuff back in. But it seemed to work for Austin, so I think it could work similarly here. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
What's the advantage? What's the advantage of having these carts here? I mean, is it the convenience item because we don't get any money off of it?
Actually,
You talking about golf carts?
No.
No, I'm talking about gourmet. I'm talking about gourmet food carts. I didn't realize tacos were gourmet food, but
No, the ones that we've talked about that I've seen, the presentations that I've had,
But what is the advantage to the town?
they have point-of-sale systems that then
Sales tax.
provide for the sales tax back to the town.
Can we verify that we're actually getting that point of sale money put in? I
In
mean,
fact, this confidentiality report that we get, not only these kind of food trucks, but what I call roach coaches that come through and provide whatever they provide to the construction workers in town. We issue, that's not a bad term.
Not a good one.
That's not a bad term. That's
Very common term.
That's an old Army term. Those of us that were in the Army, that's an old Army term. We issue their permits, and, I've been after them to make sure that they've got some system in place to secure our sales tax. They're all registered, their businesses are registered in Fort Worth, and that's one of the things I'm going to have Michael look at specifically. Because we're not going to issue them if they're not going to give us the sales tax.
I asked the question. The roach coaches, I went out the other day. Because we've talked about this on numerous occasions, and bought some food off of a roach coach.
Is that why you're coughing so much?
That's right, made me sick. The problem is, she took my $5 bill, and she gave me my change, and I paid what was on the thing. There was no sales tax added, and I'm trying to figure out, how are they figuring out? I mean, they don't write a ticket, they don't ring anything up. And if we're gonna do this, if it's not gonna benefit us, and all it's gonna do is be a convenience, that's okay, but we need to understand that. But these people are not collecting sales tax. They
Okay.
are dealing totally in cash.
Well, we got to keep in mind, we're talking about a future agenda item. We're not discussing the item right now. And we would not,
If you're gonna have it on the agenda,
well, we would not
put it on the
pursue it.
agenda, you gotta figure out some way that
That's
it's gonna
right.
benefit us.
Of course.
Well, I'm glad I
And
brought
that's,
this number
that
6
analysis would what?
up. I'm glad I brought number 6 up.
I would like to add one, though. I would like to add, looking into, you mentioned it, reminded me, is the farmer's market.
The farmer's market, I'd like to.
I would like to add that as an agenda item, that we look into.
We'll report on the farmer's market next.
Can we do
meeting.
these in sequential order and start at the top?
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
You don't need to add that farmer's market to the agenda.
I don't have it in front of me.
2, 1, 10.
I'll
Yeah.
bring my tomatoes down and so.
Okay,
I have 2 tomatoes.
all right. That's it for future agendas? It's it. Okay. Then we will recess into executive session Pursuant to Texas Government Code annotated Subchapter 551, council will convene into closed executive session as authorized by Section 551.0712, consultation with attorney, for consultation with its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with the Open Meetings Act. And water and wastewater services. Terms of interlocal agreement regarding lease and conveyance of utility system assets and provision of retail water and wastewater services, approval and parameters of representation and related matters. And we will convene into executive session at 8:30. A very quick break. 10:02, and we will call the meeting back into order. And I have a statement that I'd like to convey as we get started. The Trophy Club Town Council supports a draft strategic partnership agreement, a plan that proposes to provide retail utility services to the PID and, over time, consolidate the Trophy Club Mud One government with the Town of Trophy Club government and provide for appropriate negotiations with Westlake in regards to Solana. As a town council, we are elected by the residents of Trophy Club and charged with providing for the best interests of the entire community. In March, Mud One presented the town with a retail water and wastewater services agreement for the PID that required that the town and Mud enter into a 24-year contract. For various reasons, the agreement presented by the Mud is not acceptable, and we have moved forward with developing a counter-proposal. Today, we publicly present that proposal to the Mud One Board, the citizens of Trophy Club, and the town of Westlake, a draft proposal that we feel would strengthen the local governance for the citizens of Trophy Club. Over the next 3 years, the Strategic Partnership Agreement proposes to allow the MUD to provide retail water and wastewater services to PID customers and implement a plan to combine current MUD One infrastructure, facilities, services, functions, and employees into the town organization and develop a strategy for the MUD to relinquish services provided to Westlake, negotiating with Westlake regarding a payout for facilities and infrastructure located within the Westlake town limits, and determining any remaining debt obligations and make accommodations for any revenue loss. As mayor, I have a particularly unique perspective because I served on the MUD Board of Directors for 26 years until I was elected mayor in 2009. I know how important the MUD has been throughout the development of Trophy Club, but the growth of the PID has created a division in our town. In order to establish equality among the citizenry, the local government structure needs to change, and the proposed strategic partnership agreement helps move Trophy Club in the right direction. Many remember the town and MUD's government's feud in 2009 when legal action was taken by and against both. The hostile relationship, financial waste, and negative backlash hurt both governments, but most of all, it hurt the residents of Trophy Club. In our current proposal and subsequent actions, I assure you that the town council will maintain a respectful and open dialogue with both the Trophy Club, both the MUD and the town of Westlake. This proposal allows for a cohesive municipal organization in Trophy Club, which aligns with the long-term vision for the town. We no longer need two government entities when one can do the job. This is the logical continuation of a process that began when a number of individual MUDs were consolidated into the present Trophy Club MUD 1 district. Typically, a MUD would be absorbed when a municipality incorporates. However, MUD 1 services two towns, Trophy Club and the portion of Westlake known as Solana. This unique situation requires that all three elected bodies agree to any change in the current structure. In addition to assuming ownership of MUD 1 facilities, both Trophy Club and Westlake would assume and negotiate any remaining debt obligations and make accommodations for revenue loss. Allowing Westlake to assume ownership of MUD 1 facilities in Solana paves the way for relinquishing control while minimizing the negative financial impact. As anticipated when the PID was created, the town council believes that the revenue now coming from the PID and commercial development within Trophy Club will replace existing Solana revenues. This proposal recommends that in order to minimize outstanding debt, all future capital expenditures shall be funded by Trophy Club. For example, if a wastewater expansion is required to accommodate further residential and commercial growth in Trophy Club, then the MUD would agree to withhold issuing debt and allow the town to fund the expansion in anticipation of consolidation. This would also allow for all Trophy Club citizens to pay their fair share of necessary capital improvements. The MUD One Board has provided quality utility services for both communities, but we have always discussed merging when the time was right. We believe that time is now. As a town council, we want to reiterate that we are grateful to the MUD and the dedicated service they have provided for the Trophy Club area for many years. But we now ask that the MUD Board of Directors to consider approving the strategic partnership agreement and to do what we believe is best for the residents and the entire community of Trophy Club.
Mayor, if I could, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the strategic interlocal agreement as discussed in the executive session, and ask the town attorney to complete the paperwork and have that delivered to the other parties as soon as possible, and hopefully tomorrow.
I'll second.
Any discussion? The motion's been made and seconded. Do we have any discussion?
Well, I guess what I'd like to say is I know that it's a very difficult decision. However, I have really appreciated the process that has gone through the last 4 or 5 sessions that we've had. We have sought good counsel, and we have looked at all of the opportunities, as well as very specifically looking to the future for the town of Trophy Club. And the future means one entity working to provide services to all citizens and residents of Trophy Club. And I think it's hard. And there are going to be people who aren't going to like it. There are going to be people who are going to like it, and I guarantee you there are going to be a lot of people who don't even know the difference. So the opportunity for us is to educate, share, talk, be open about it, and be nice about it. So I'm excited about it because it's a part of our Vision 30, and as the mayor said, the time is right. It's now. So I'm in much favor of this. And this is an agreement that allows these 3 entities to negotiate and come to an agreement where it will make it easier to work.
That is one of the points, Jeanette. Thank you. That what we're doing is presenting something that gives us a place,
a starting point.
A starting point is something that we can begin to negotiate, something that all 3 parties can come together and discuss, which is something we haven't been successful in making happen, and that's what we're proposing. And I really do think that the rapid growth, way more rapid than we expected, the rapid growth of the PID is really driving this, because it's just not a workable situation where we have half of our citizens who have no say in what happens to them in that, as relates to utilities, and that we also don't have the ability to spread the cost equally. So that's where we are. Anybody else have any comments? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. We are adjourned at 10:10.